Jack Criss is the founder of Business Always Matters and its website, bamsouth.com. That's searchable on the internet at www.bamsouth.com. Mr. Criss also publishes the BAM South print publication, which is available throughout the Jackson, Mississippi metropolitan area. Recently, we spoke with Mr. Criss about BAM South and his new business market entry, Criss Public Relations. Hello and welcome to the February 5th edition, 2017 of MOJOMAG. This is a business spotlight edition with Jack Jackson Criss. He is the founder of bamsouth.com and CPR Public Relations. Jack, welcome to MOJOMAG.
Well, thanks for having me. I know it took you a long time to mention my name, but you change your name periodically when you're in publishing. You have to kind of stay a step ahead of the law, and the lawsuits pending for some blasphemous thing you've written. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Jack, does that mean that you have to be a chameleon to be a publisher when you're doing print publications, or you work in media?
I don't know. I don't think I've ever been a chameleon. I think if you go back and look, I've been doing this a long time, as I've told you, business publishing since 1990, and before that, talk radio since '86. And I think I've always been pretty consistent in what I've done. I've grown. I'm a better writer now than I was 10 or 15 years ago. To that extent, I've changed. You do have to be a little bit of a chameleon depending on who you interview, and you know that. I mean, if you're interviewing a guy who owns a farm and you're interviewing, the governor, you're going to act a little bit differently. But I think the themes of the publications I've owned, and I've owned several, I've sold some I've had to close down. I mean, that's you've had success, and some of us, and some of us, you have to realize the writing's on the wall and you move on to something else. But that's a long answer to your question. But I think the message has been consistent: pro-business, pro-Mississippi. So in that sense, no, I guess I haven't been a chameleon.
With the business interests that you have and with the rich media past that is part of your history, tell us where you are now with bamsouth.com and CPR Public Relations. Sounds very interesting.
Well, Dwayne, I had to be pulled kicking and screaming into the 21st century. I always thought print would be my bailiwick and what I would do. Ironically, we've got 1,000 free publications here in Jackson, but the cost of printing was going up exponentially. The cost of postage was going up, and more people were getting their news from social media. So Stephen Edmondson of ProViz, who does my website, we had a meeting at Beagle Bagel, as a matter of fact, which is now turning into Doe's Eats Place. And I came up with the name bamsouth.com. Business Always Matters is the acronym for a website. Initially, we were going to cover the whole geographical area of the South. That became kind of a nightmare, strategic nightmare. So I limited it to Mississippi primarily. BAMSouth.com is a publication that I look at it like this, Dwayne. The articles we publish are about businesses that most people probably have never heard of, unless they've used them, but they have wonderful stories. They may not be Fortune 500 companies, they may be mom and pop companies, but I have found out that when you sit down and talk to any business owner, even if they're reticent initially about being interviewed, there's something there. There's a struggle. Yes. Or there's a failure, or they may have filed bankruptcy and they came back, or they may be a volunteer firefighter on the side, or they may have a child with disabilities, and yet they're working, some of them, 18 hours a day. Those people inspire me. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't knock the C-Spires or the Farm Bureau. Farm Bureau has been a big supporter of mine forever. But the bigger corporations have always gotten coverage. MDA, MEC, and all that, that's anathema to me. I want to write about the private business owner, the entrepreneur, man, woman, African American, Asian American, Hispanic, I don't care. If they're out there trying to make a difference, and that is an overused phrase, but if you're creating a good product and providing good service, man, you're already making a difference. You don't have to volunteer necessarily. That's nice to do, but I am pro-business in the sense that I am a business advocate and I'm a business defender. You ever see movies about an evil, greedy teacher or environmentalist or politician? It's always the evil, greedy businessman. And I maintain, and always have editorially, that if it weren't for business people,
Yes.
philanthropy wouldn't exist. The money wouldn't be going to the churches.
Yes.
The money wouldn't be going to Stew Pot. It's those of us who are creative and create wealth and products that do the best good. And you know what's ironic, Dwayne? And I'm giving you the long answer again. I'm sorry. I tend to be long-winded. I'm not the best businessman in the world. I realized that a long time ago. And I mentioned there's been some failures. But I understand business people. I respect, admire them, and I want to write about them. I'm a better writer than I am a business person.
Yes.
I'm a better interviewer than I am a business person. So I learn from them.
Where does this passion for, obviously working in media is a labor of love for you, but this passion about business, and you just mentioned that you know, and we all have our failures. What is the rich history that spurs you every day to discover the greatness that comes from entrepreneurship here in Mississippi in particular?
That's a great question. Philosophically and originally, it was from reading the works of Ayn Rand, who is one of my philosopher heroes. She was the only writer I had encountered up until that time, and I was 18 when I first read her, who lauded business people as heroes, and it changed my life forever in many other ways. So I decided these people are heroes. You know, they really, a lot of them are. Sure, they're bad business people, but they're also, as I said, bad teachers. There's bad people in every avenue. But if it were not for business people, the country would not exist. Government doesn't create anything. Government taxes businesses to do what they do. And the second part of your question,
well, you know, the
continued passion for it. Okay.
What spurs you?
And I apologize. It's meeting people really like you, like we're recording this at Gill, Ladner and Priest. Attorneys are business people too. They're entrepreneurs. When I talk to them and when they start lighting up, you know, I mentioned earlier sometimes they're reticent, but once they get going and talk about the business, man, it's like all of a sudden they're possessed. Absolutely. Their eyes twinkle. Absolutely. And they start talking fast and they say, "Am I going on too much?" Because they love their business. And that inspires me. And it gives me fire. And I think, well, you know, it may be difficult out there, and it is in this climate, in this economic climate. Yes. But these people are still enthusiastic and believe in what they sell. And I love being around people like that.
Well, when individuals learn about BAMSouth.com, what is something that maybe they don't know right now about your entity? What can they expect? Though the person that's not been to your website or maybe has not heard of what you do, mm-hmm. what's the best thing you can tell them?
Well, first of all, and this is a negative thing, we've got a lot of work to do, but we're working on that right now. There have been some personal setbacks, but a lot of new copy has been added, and a lot more new copy is forthcoming. While the articles are pro-business and are business-oriented or geared toward a business person, like a column by an attorney or an accountant, the editorials, Dwayne, are no holds barred. We have libertarians, we have Greens, we have Democrats, we have progressives. I don't care who you are. Occupy Wall Street, Occupy Jackson. I don't have to agree with your political views to publish your editorials. Mm-hmm. And that shocks a lot of people who, you know, I'm primarily a political libertarian, and I've asked people on the polar opposite end of the political spectrum to contribute to my publication, and I say, I will not edit you, because I realize not all business people are libertarians or Republicans or Democrats. We have our different views. But that is one thing they will find, op-eds from a myriad of different philosophies, and I think pretty hard-hitting editorials, and not the same stuff you see day in and day out in other publications. It's usually the same writers, and I can mention their names: Marshall Ramsey, Sid Salter. We've got some young writers who are fantastic, and we've got some writers who, guess what, the Clarion Ledger wouldn't publish because they're too controversial. But guess what? BAMSouth.com will publish them.
Well, the tolerant nature of your media entity is to be applauded, especially in this day and age. It sounds like you're giving a platform to all who would want to write about business here in the state of Mississippi. Now, this leads me to another question. With that being the case, I'm quite sure you run across some controversial subjects that BAMSouth.com has to manage. Can you go into detail on some of those?
I tend not to, as an editor, publish anything or rewrite comments that are either so negative that they shouldn't be printed or could be misconstrued. One gentleman who has since passed was a prominent CEO in Mississippi, said something to me once that I could not believe, and I deleted the comments. He's since passed. I could probably say what that was, but his descendants are still here, so I won't. I will say people like Bernie Evers, who I got to know well, was kind of a jerk. Now, whether or not he was to blame for the demise of LDDS, I don't know. I don't think he was. I think he was a pawn who got caught up in his own ego. He was the most difficult person I've ever worked with in my life. By the same token, I have met some multimillionaires who are as down to earth and as friendly as they can be. But you know what I've noticed about the wealthy individuals in business?
What's that?
When I take them out for dinner or a drink,
Yes.
and I say, let me pick up the tab. Okay. And I think maybe that's why they're wealthy. They let me pick up the tab.
They don't spend a lot of their money.
Next time I'll keep my mouth shut. Say, hey, you can buy me and sell me many times over. But I mentioned those names. But sure, I mean, I've got stories on people. But you know what? Don't we all have something in our closet?
Absolutely. If we live on this earth, we do.
We do, and I'd rather cast the first stone. I don't want to do that. I'd rather write about. I've done things I'm not proud of, and I need to make restitutions for. Even now, there's some things I've been late on some things, and I feel like I need to call the people, and I have, and say, look, I'll correct that. By the same token, if you've been in business for any length of time, you're going to have some blemishes, but
Absolutely.
we want to. Let WAPT cover that, or let the Clarion Ledger or Mississippi Business Journal. No, BAMSouth.com and anything Jack Criss does is going to talk about what these businesses do that's positive, that helps this community.
That is a very interesting segue because now you've launched CPR.
Mm-hmm.
That's Criss Public Relations.
Right.
So now the business that perhaps has a blemish that they need to work on for their public image, they can come to you to try to remedy that?
That's part of what we do. I have found as a writer, Dwayne, that most of, and you're a writer too, most of the messages out there are poorly written. Bad grammar, bad usage, bad verbiage, not very enticing, and that loses a lot of your customers. It can lose a lot of your customers. And so we want to help. This is a direct offshoot of BAMSouth.com. And frankly, I decided to start CPR, Criss Public Relations, because of what I'm facing as a publisher and what you're going to face or probably have faced too. It's an uphill. There's a limited amount of the advertising pie in Jackson, and so much of it now goes to publications, to me, that are kind of, I don't know, somebody gets value out of them, but those of us who are trying to make a difference and present well-written copy are having a harder time. And I thought, well, you know, and I'm asked a lot by advertisers and even people who don't advertise to help me with a slogan or a logo, or would you write a press release for me? Or they'll call me and say, who do I send the press release to? And we can do all that. And you're going to help us with apps. You know, you have volunteered. Greg Peavy Graphics is going to do design. Stephen Edmondson, Joe Garner at ProViz, they're going to help us. Natalie West at Quest is going to help us. CrowdQuest, rather, is going to help us with Instagram and Twitter and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So we've got a good team there. I can't do it all, and I'm glad to have this team working with me. But that's why Criss Public Relations was born. And the other thing, Dwayne, I'll tell you, we're not expensive, and we're not going to, gouge you.
Right.
And we tell you your prices up front. Quick story. I saw and people know who this is, a well-known ad agency here in town, and they pride themselves on integrity and this and that. I saw them charge a client $250,000 for one project, and I went to the owner of the business and said, I would not pay that. And he said, well, no. And there was nothing in writing. He said, no, I'll pay it. And I thought, they're ripping this person off. They're charging for phone calls, for meals that they're their employees are eating while on the road. We're not going to do that, man. Look, we're a nimble, home-based, entrepreneurial business. We'll drive to see you, and we're not going to bill you for the gas.
Well, that is a very noble position statement for the business.
We want to make money. We want to make money. Don't get me wrong. But you know what? Guess what? If our client is not making money, we're not going to make money. It's reciprocal. So we better give them a good message, and we better drive people to their website and give them a good slogan other than for all your real estate needs. If we don't give them good things to work with, they're not going to make the money that we want back in return. And I'm sure if they're happy, they'll share in the wealth, you know?
Well, you've given a great vision statement for your entities, for your business. What would you say would be the mission? To provide quality public relations and editorial service to businesses in Mississippi. Am I in the ballpark?
Well, that's part of it. I think affordable, nimble, quick, fair, and honest messaging, and then the ability to have more eyeballs see that message. And the advantage of my having BAMSouth.com is, guess what? Part of your package may be a free ad on my website, or a story.
Or an ad in MOJOMAG.
Or an ad in MOJOMAG. It used to be ad agencies said, oh, that's unethical. Yes. But to me, we're not the Wall Street Journal. I'm a small businessman trying to make a living. And if there's a good business out there we're working for, I probably want to tell their story anyway. And I'll tell it for free if they're a client. I don't mind saying that. You know, there's nothing... That line between editorial and advertising that you hear so much about, it's not really applicable in Jackson, Mississippi. Yes. Maybe if you're Fox News or the Wall Street Journal or Forbes, yes, but not here. Yes. Not here.
You're listening to MOJOMAG, and we're talking with R. Jack Criss. He is the founder and publisher of BAMSouth.com and his new business entity, CPR, Criss Public Relations. This is MOJOMAG for February 5th, 2017. For more information about BAMSouth.com and CPR Public Relations, what is the best way to get in touch?
Go to Facebook, first of all. Look at our BAMSouth.com page and our Criss Public Relations page. Like them, please, if you would. Also, my email address is chrispublicrelations@gmail.com. Phone is 601-750-6587, and I'll answer it personally.
Outstanding. This is MOJOMAG. This is a Business Spotlight edition. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Dwayne.